We're going to go into our last segment here. We're actually over on time, but that's all right. You guys are going to ride with us here for a little while. We just talked about announcers. It's the perfect segue. Chris Jericho spending 30 years in the industry. A lot of people throw the word GOAT around for this guy. Greatest of all time. Oh, yeah.
My God.
Longevity. He's got a long career, quality matches, quality feuds, title reigns up the wazoo. He's in the conversation for sure. He's in the conversation as one of the greatest wrestlers, greatest performers, whichever way you want to describe it, one of the greatest of all time here.
Regardless if you want to say, you can't deny he has probably the best wrestling career. Forget like whether you matches you
Flair
like
had a very nice fucking career. Flair had a very nice career.
It's before my time, I guess. So I'll give you that. But jeez,
there was a couple. But that's what I'm saying. This is the level. This is the level Hogan and Flair. Like this is the level of career that we're talking about. Like this is the room. He's eating at the big table here. He's
elite.
Yeah, he's regardless of how you feel about Chris Jericho, he's eating at the big table. He's with the big boys, and he's having real conversations with real people.
We're paraphrasing this, but does anybody say anything negative about Chris Jericho at all? I don't know. I'm asking. I'm sincerely asking.
There's a few negative connotations that come to Jericho. One of which is he plays the veteran card like a goddamn violin.
He's a diva.
Yeah. But at this point in his age, he admits to it, though. He's like, listen, I like things a certain way. I like performing a certain way, and that's just what it's going to be. He did an interview recently when they were talking to him about his match in New Japan with Kenny Omega. And he told him, he said, when this match was promoted, people were like, man, is Jericho going to be able to keep up with Kenny Omega? And he was like, why would I keep up with Kenny Omega? I'm Chris Jericho. Omega's going to wrestle the match that Chris Jericho wants to have.
That's it.
Be the end of that, and that's what's going to happen. Meanwhile, Omega was coming off of, I think he was the United States champion at the time, was getting ready to roll in for the IWGP heavyweight title. He was the guy, and Jericho was like, no. He's wrestling a Chris Jericho match. I'm not wrestling a Kenny Omega match. What are you, crazy?
No.
And so, yeah, he has a little bit of a reputation with that. But at the same time, that diva-ness, that cockiness has come through on the other side. This is the same guy that humbled Brock Lesnar, same guy that humbled Goldberg. This is the same guy that has stood up, got into damn near got into a fist fight with Brock Lesnar over opening up Randy Orton on pay-per-view. So he's used this evil for good on some occasions. So even on the criticism, there's still a side of him where it's like, all right, well, it's Chris Jericho.
Well, to think for a second that any of those guys think they were wrestling anything other than a Jericho match might be disrespectful. I mean, you can say what you want of his ego, I guess, but you got to respect that. I mean, he's earned all of that. So the fact that you would even think you're wrestling your own match means you're being disrespectful. And you don't even deserve the match anymore.
I always just assume, when I started wrestling with the guys and we go into a locker room and we have a veteran there that we know we're going against, we immediately, it's kind of a traditional thing. You walk up to the guy and you just go, what do you want to do? Basically just letting them know, I'm following whatever you want to do. You're the veteran here, right?
That's it.
And there's some times where you get real, AJ Styles is notorious for this, where he's normally the veteran. But he'll go to the guy and he'll go, what do you do? What do you want to do? Do you have any special spots or anything like that? Or that's the good veterans. I'm sure Chris Jericho is a good veteran, but at the same time, I don't think Chris Jericho has ever walked up to a guy and say, hey, what do you want to do? I'm pretty sure Jericho will sit down and, come here, guy, come sit down. Here's what's going to happen.
Well, AJ Styles is a good example, but I would imagine, and again, I'm guessing here, but I would imagine that AJ's done that his whole career where he personalizes every match. That's what kind of made him so good. So being a veteran later on, I would imagine that would carry over. He still does that where he communicates with the other wrestler.
Yeah. Paul Graney is asking me in the chat, is this the first time both tag champs have been African-American at the same time? Yes. Because I'm thinking in my head, we haven't had two belts for long. So I'm just thinking in my head, and I can't think of a single time that it's happened, that it's gone down like that. So I think that is a situation that we're in. So let me get
I
into
really,
my packs.
I really like that champion thing you were talking about, the with the three-way, like every champion has to not defend their belt, but fight the other champions, like a three-way match. I really like that because it really puts focus on the other belts. Remember, I used to tell you all the time I hate the fact that it just became about the main belt. And no other belt really mattered at all, to the point where they were kind of like getting rid of them and they weren't even around. So
well, they keep track too at Survivor Series. They keep track. So like in that three-way with the Intercontinental title, the U.S. title, and the North American title, right? So let's say Damian Priest wins the match. It goes to NXT. And then the next match happens, and it's like, okay, Raw won that match, so now Raw gets a point. And at the end of the pay-per-view, we have the total score, right?
Right.
So it's interesting how they've been.
I
like it thus far. This year should be interesting. But I'm gonna go ahead. Jericho is a mastermind. Saul says Jericho is a mastermind. Always remember that. He did put Orange Cassidy over. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Put over. Okay, let me help you guys with the jargon. Okay, put over means that a program took place. The heel or the veteran, depending on the scenario, worked the program in an effort to make the underdog appear on even level with the veteran. And then when the match took place, the young guy will beat the veteran and will then appear to the audience either equal to or no higher level than the veteran that he just beat. That's putting over. Jericho did not put over Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy won a match over Jericho. He didn't get over Chris Jericho. If the two of them walk into a room, it's Chris Jericho and the other guy with his hands in his pockets. That hasn't changed. Jericho wasted his time. He just wasted 3 months of his fucking career feuding with the guy who was going to only be over with the same section he was over with before. No new fan, no random casual looked at AEW and saw this guy beat Chris Jericho and say to himself, wow, what a fucking athlete. They saw this guy beat Chris Jericho and they turned the channel and said, fuck this shit, and put something else on. They tried. I'll give him credit for trying, but it wasn't going to work. There's only but so. My brother just called him a god a second ago. Maybe Hercules. He's like a demigod. He can't cure all ills. Some people just can't, And that's one of those situations. The Orange Cassidy gimmick is hilarious. It's a comedy gimmick. It works. It's going to get over with a certain amount of people. That's fantastic. It'll never be over to the casual fan, to the peripheral fan. They're going to look at the guy and just say that's horseshit. And the fact that Chris Jericho is doing that now makes him look old. Because that's what I got from people who don't watch wrestling and they saw Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. And they went, God damn, Jericho just looks horrible in there with this guy. They brought Jericho down. Jericho did not bring him up. And that's not how that works. Saul says, so AJ, since Cody won the TNT championship, is the open challenge back on AEW? Yes, he said it right after he won. As soon as he won the belt, he said open challenge is back. And that's when Orange Cassidy came out. And Orange Cassidy will be the number one contender next week. So good luck to Pockets. Saul said the Lakers are up 30 at half. Paul Green, I don't care about the NBA Finals. We already know who was winning the chip when it started. As soon as these motherfuckers went into the bubble, we knew what it was. Stop. This is like when Infinity War ended and we started going into Endgame and people were like, what a cliffhanger. What a cliffhanger. Everyone who died just got renewed for films, motherfucker. We only got to wait like 8 months and they're coming back. What the fuck is this cliffhanger bullshit? We already know. We knew the minute AD got to Los Angeles, it was a done series. So stop hitting me up with these updates. Send me a snapshot of when LeBron's holding the trophy yet again, because that's what we're waiting for. We already know how this is going to go. They're going in there against Miami Heat, nigga. There's nobody on the Miami Heat. They're wasting my time. Let me get to my Chris Jericho matches. That's more important. Let's talk about my favorite top 10 Chris Jericho matches. Now, here's the deal. I'm going to be honest with you guys. You're not going to like every single match that I put on here. We did this last time with Triple H when there was the 25th anniversary. There were matches that I did not include, and we went over all of them, so we'll do it here. Top 10 Chris Jericho matches of all time. I did not limit myself to WWE matches. There's actually, if I'm looking at this, two WCW matches, an AEW match, only one that I liked, and one Smoky Mountain Wrestling match from 1994. I had to go looking for it because it stuck in my head and I wanted to make sure I had the dates. That just caught my eye. What did he say? James says, love how OC can just get handed a TNT title shot right after Brody killed them in that attempt. But AEW, right? That's what they do. The AEW, there's not a whole lot of them. So here we go. All right, so number 10, I'm going to start off my list with the AEW match. Chris Jericho versus Adam Page for the AEW World title to crown the first ever AEW champion. That was history. That match stood out to me because that was the best that the new Chris Jericho has looked. He hasn't looked that good since. This was my last holdout. This was the one match that Jericho had post WWE where I was like, please, dear God, don't crumble. Don't break anything, please. Go out there and put the young guy over. He ended up winning the match, which we now know business-wise was a fantastic decision. But it was the best he's looked in AEW. He hasn't looked that good since. You look like you were leaning in to say something.
No, I'm listening to you. I'm agreeing.
So yeah, so Chris Jericho, Adam Page, all out. That's my number 10 match on the list. Paul Green says if Jericho versus Malenko.
That's what I was reading. I was like,
if Jericho versus Malenko isn't on there, we riot. Okay, I want to see if you riot, Paul Green. Let's see. Number 9. Oh yes, so that was the birth. That was the birth of Le Champion. You are correct. That was a good moment. That was a good Chris Jericho. Number 9. Take you all the way back to WrestleMania 2000. Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, triple threat match for both the European and Intercontinental Championships. Jericho's first championship no, it wasn't. The Intercontinental title was. So yeah. So that was I remember that match being heavily like I've never been stiffer in my life than when I heard that match is happening at WrestleMania. Kurt Angle, Benoit alone. Benoit, Jericho alone. Jericho Angle alone. All three in 2 fall match. That's still to this day one of my.
I tend to feel like those triple threat matches like lose a lot of value.
But this triple threat match had 2 falls. This is what was so great about this match. Kurt Angle held 2 belts, the Intercontinental and the European Championship at the same exact time. There would be 2 pinfalls.
So you could win both if you had both. So one belt was up first, and then the second belt was after.
Right. So
okay,
that's interesting. So what happened was that he had 2 belts, and the first fall was for the European Championship. Second fall was for the Intercontinental Championship. So Chris Jericho pinned Benoit and won the European title. Then then the other way, Benoit pinned Jericho and won the Intercontinental title. So the match was a banger. Kurt lost 2 titles and was never pinned. It was hilarious, and he threw a big fit at the end of it. It was a whole thing. Saul says, "Damn it, Chris Benoit is a piece of crap." Well, I didn't say he was the greatest human being who ever lived. Nigga, I just said he was in the match. I understand that he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm not going to take away his fucking career. Jericho had a fucking great match with him.
WWE did.
Cover your ears because there's one more Benoit in here. So, no disrespect to you guys, but I think he should not be mentioned. Well, he's going to be mentioned one more time. So cover your ears at a few spots. He's coming up again. Number 8. This is the Smoky Mountain match. Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. The Thrill Seekers, the young, buff, blonde studs of Landstorm and Chris Jericho as their tag team against the Heavenly Bodies, managed by Jim Cornette. And why is that one of my favorite matches? That match stood out to me even when I was a kid because Jericho wrestled that entire match with a broken arm. The entire match. He broke his arm earlier in the day, went to the hospital, got something done to his arm so that it would be stabilized, went into the ring and wrestled a full-ass match with the Heavenly Bodies. That man's double tough. Double tough. Now, the funny part of the story is how he hurt his arm. So, for those of you who don't know the story, Chris Jericho went to Smoky Mountain with Landstorm, and they were being brought in as young underdog babyfaces. That's why they were going against the Heavenly Bodies. Heavenly Bodies, the storyline had been that they were fucking with them, beating them up, these young punk kids up from Canada coming down here to the South, and they were just fucking them up. So here comes the big show, right? 1994, this is in August, the big blow-off show. The big underdogs, thrill seekers are going to come up and give the big bad heels their comeuppance. And the show is all set up. Everybody's doing shit. Jericho walks over to Jim Cornette and he says, "Hey, you mind if I go work out with some of the guys?" He said, "Yeah, just don't get hurt." He said, "Okay, cool." So he goes to the ring, and I forgot the name of the dude he was working with, decides he wants to show Chris Jericho a shooting star press. Sure, Chris Jericho has never done a shooting star press. Hasn't done one since. But on this night, he was like, "Yeah, let's fucking
feeling ambitious."
He goes in there, gets on top of a rope, does the shooting star press, lands on the mat, breaks his fucking arm. So Jim's pissed. They send him to the hospital, stabilizes. He's like, "You know what? I'm doing this match. Fuck it." Gets in the ring, wrestles the whole goddamn match with a broken arm. It's fantastic. It's poetry. It's poetry. So that match is here. That match is here on the list. This is why I'm never doing this again. The audio is great, but I can't. My hands is too fidgety. I'm like stressing really hard not to move my fucking hands.
Easy. Pounded out some Red Bulls before you got out here.
I got the Parkinson's. 7 here. Jericho versus Damolinko. Slamboree 97. This is the blow off here between Chris Jericho and Dean Malenko. What was it? Bore us Malenko, and he was doing the whole deal with twitching gimmicks around, trying to keep Dean away from the belt. Yes, I had to include the feud. It's one of the greats of all time. Corny was flipping. I remember that match. Yeah, Corny was pretty mad about that shit. But Jericho and Malenko, classic rivalry in WCW. Had to pick one of their matches. This was one of my favorite ones here, Slamboree 97. Jericho, this was when Jericho was at his peak of popularity in WCW, when he was just fucking with everybody. It was awesome. Cover your ears, Saul. So Jericho and Benoit against Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin, the Raw match in 2001. This is the match where Triple H tore the quad. And Jericho still put his bitch ass in the walls of Jericho.
I remember that.
And by request, Triple H wanted to finish that match up. That match was designed to put those two guys over, and the fact that Triple H did not let a quad injury stop that from happening still amazes me to this day. But Jericho, being the professional, was able to go in there and perform that match without furthering and injuring anyone. The match was it was just great. They followed that with TLC 4, by the way. That was a crazy few weeks for Jericho and the other guy during the course of that run. But that's another great match that I always think about to this day with Chris Jericho. Always stands out. We have another WCW match. This one's a lot higher on the list because it's one of my favorites of all time. I thought about this match nonstop when it happened. We got to go to my boy Hooven. Chris Jericho versus Hooven Tude Guerrera. WCW Super Brawl 8. That is the mask versus title match where we had to unmask that greasy, sneaky Latino Hooven Tude Guerrera. We had to remove. I was the commentary at the time. He's so greasy, so greasy because he was always so lotioned up. Hoovy's lotion game is 9,000. To this day, I can't find another guy whose lotion game was so great.
I believe I remember vaguely that match. You were watching that one.
Yeah, well, a long time ago. Yeah. This was
remember exactly where we were too.
Maplewood. This is when
downstairs, dark room. I would have to pretend like I was sleeping because I was supposed to be in bed by the time you watched WCW, because you would watch WWE first and then you would watch the replay, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
how that happened. They're already throwing matches in the chat, and the 2 matches that are in the chat are not on the list, and I'll explain why. Actually, I forgot about the one Nancy just posted. Jericho versus Rock versus Taker versus Stone Cold for the Undisputed World. Look at that lineup right there. Jericho, Rock, Taker, Stone Cold. Oof, man. You can't put that match on TV today, boy.
It's too much.
These fans won't know what to fucking do with all that.
It's too much.
James is popping. Hoovy juice. Hell yeah. 1,000% Hoovy juice.
Hoovy juice.
The next match, number 3, I went with Chris Jericho versus Landstorm, ECW One Night Stand. That was the opener for the greatest WWE pay-per-view to ever exist, and it wasn't even a WWE show. The ECW One Night Stand, as most of you know, my long-term listening fans know, ECW One Night Stand is the one pay-per-view I hold in my heart forever, the greatest pay-per-view I've ever seen in my life. It also helps that I was in a room full of hardcore wrestling fans and inebriated as fuck when it happened.
That always makes it better.
It was such an experience. What was this, 05? So I was 2 years into digging out my wife, so it was just a good night overall.
Jesus Christ.
It was a good time with ECW One Night Stand 2005. That match in particular, too, that was This Is Wrestling. That's like, what a great, and then he came back with the Lionheart jacket. When he was Lionheart, Chris Jericho. I fucking went nuts. What a great match. They wrestled. It was fantastic. Match number 2. This was a sleeper. I promise none of you had this match even in your heads. But it stood out to me because it was the test. It was the litmus test. This was the match that they did on purpose to see if they really would get behind Chris Jericho. And this is Chris Jericho versus Triple H on Raw, April 17th, 2000. This was the match where Jericho defeated Triple H for the WWE Championship, and it got reversed. Some heel bullshit took place. Triple H grabbed Earl Hebner and forced him to reverse the decision, and they ended up giving the belt back to Triple H. It was all part of the plan. None of it was a shoot, all part of the program. But it was a fantastic test because when Jericho beat him with the line salt and pinned Triple H and won the WWF at the time, WWF Championship, that place went absolutely fucking crazy. That place went nuts. And it was a good sign. So they built him from there, and eventually he would go on to become champion. But that was the first night. That was big. I popped hard. I went nuts. I was like, they just fucking pulled the trigger on Jericho on a random ass Raw. There was no build up to it. It was University of Penn State. It was a college town. They were all drunk, and the fucking place went bonkers. If you go to YouTube and you look that exact date up, Raw, I put it down so you guys can Google to YouTube it. April 17th, 2000, Jericho versus Triple H. One of the loudest reactions Chris Jericho has ever gotten in his fucking career. It was fantastic. It's a memory that stuck with me to this day, and that's why he's number 2 on the list. Number 1, my favorite Chris Jericho match of all time. Saul put in the chat that Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 19 was his number 1 Chris Jericho match. I can agree to a degree. I love Shawn Michaels and Jericho together, but that wasn't the match for me. It was my favorite match until they did this match. The ladder match. No Mercy, 2008, Chris Jericho and HBK. All of 2008, these two guys had a war, a rivalry that almost took an eye. It almost, they damaged each other up. This was the ladder match where Chris Jericho lost actual teeth. It busted his mouth up, and it was for the world title. This was also the match that fucked CM Punk over on his world title reign, because this was the match where they needed the belt. So they came up with some fuckery to get the belt off of Punk so they could put the title on the line in this ladder match for Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. It, to me, is Chris Jericho's greatest match. This is when his heel work was, I actually skipped the match. I skipped number 6. I'll go back to number 6 in a second. Let me finish what I'm doing here. Jericho this was the comeback. This was the return Jericho. This was the heel, the sycophant phase, where he was talking at all these big letters and talking very slowly in his cadence and promos. Jericho was on top of the world. He had disappeared for literally a year or two and came back better than when he was fucking there. This was it. This match was out of this world. The match that I picked for number 6 that I forgot was kind of a sleeper match as well. I don't know how many of you remember this. Chris Jericho versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at Backlash 2009 was dope because people mostly will point to the WrestleMania match where it was Jericho versus the Three Legends, because that's where the reaction for Steamboat really started, because people were like, holy shit, he can move and not kill himself. It was awesome. The Backlash match to me is more important because Steamboat didn't have 2 other legends to hide behind in that match. It was Jericho Steamboat one-on-one, one last retirement match for Steamboat after having his career taken from him. Very much like the Edge situation and the Daniel Bryan situation. Steve Austin accidentally injured Ricky the Dragon Steamboat way back when in the 90s in WCW, and a great legendary career got cut short. So the fact that he was able to do the WrestleMania match and not die was impressive. The fact that he was able to do the match with Jericho, a full-on wrestling singles match at Backlash, was super impressive to me. And he was the dragon of old, man. Those deep arm drags when he was sinking them in on Chris Jericho, boy, I was like, ooh. I remember Flair's dumbass taking those fucking things over and over and over. It brought back a lot of memories. So those are my top 10 favorite Chris Jericho matches. James in the chat says, didn't Earl do a fast count or something? Yeah, there was a fast count. I mean, it's negotiable. If you listen to the count, I mean, you could spin it like a fast count, but he had a really good cadence to that. It was questionable. So check.